Blog Talk Radio.
Good evening and welcome to House Talk. I am your host, Dr. Lauren D. Pitts. My guest co-hosts this month were Regina Williams and Carolyn Peterson. However, Regina is unable to be with us tonight, so our awesome colleague and friend, Tracy Wells Huggins, is going to be joining she and Carolyn. Tracy and Carolyn, welcome back to House Talk.
Thank you.
Additionally, I have to say I am truly honored to welcome to House Talk for the first time my dear friend and colleague, international corporate, regulatory, and integrity compliance consultant, Dr. Robin Joppi. Dr. Robin!
Hey.
Friend.
Hey, thank you so much. I am honored and count it a privilege to be here with y'all tonight, so I'm excited. Thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely. And last, but certainly not least, another powerhouse in her own right and also a first-time guest to House Talk, personal growth trainer and professional development specialist, Ronell Smith. Ronell, welcome to House Talk.
Thank you so much, Dr. Pitts. It's such a pleasure and an honor to join you all ladies tonight. Wow.
The bios of these amazing, and that's all caps, bold print, italics, folks. These amazing women are available on each of our social media platforms and the slideshow running during the show. Carolyn, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to you.
All right. Hello, everyone. So let's just get right into it. Women held under a quarter, actually 24% of senior roles across the world in 2018, which is actually a decrease from 25% in 2017. However, in 2018, 75% of businesses had at least one woman in senior management compared to 66% in 2017. But then on the other hand, 25% of global businesses had no women in senior management roles. Women currently only hold 25, which is only 5% of CEO positions of those S&P, rather Standard & Poor 500 companies, which suggests the glass ceiling is still an invisible barrier, preventing women from reaching the top. Dr. Pitts not only remains committed to strengthening families one solution at a time, she is wholeheartedly dedicated to empowering women and girls to pursue greatness and achieve their best selves personally and professionally. For our regular listeners and those new to House Talk, all month long, Dr. Pitts was dedicated to addressing the major topics impacting women and will continue using this platform to communicate solution-focused tools that educate, empower, and liberate you, our listeners.
Oh, my goodness, this is so exciting. A ton of information will be shared tonight, so you might want to take some notes. Tonight, it's all about women in leadership, shattering the glass ceiling. We really want to hear from you. So call us live during the show to ask a question or share a comment. The number is 515-605-9744. That's 515-605-9744.
So check this out, ladies. Women in the workforce are faced with the glass ceiling. Women are prevented from receiving promotion, especially to the executive rankings within their corporations. Within the last 20 years, the women who are becoming more involved and pertinent in industries and organizations have rarely been in the executive ranks. Women in most corporations encompass below 5% of board of directors and corporate officer positions. This being stated, what role is education or lack of advanced education playing in women's ability to shatter the glass ceiling? And does that same ideology apply for women of color? Dr. Robin, I'm going to start with you. Then Ronell, I want you to chime in. Tracy, Carolyn, let's start chopping it up. What role is education or lack of advanced education playing in women's ability to shatter the glass ceiling? And then following up, does that same ideology apply for women of color?
Okay. This is Dr. Robin. I think this subject, we can be here for the next month talking about this. This is something else. But, I will start off by saying I think, women are playing an increasing and significant role in today's economy. Salaries and spending capacity are adding to the country's economic well-being. I mean, women are, in terms of education, we're getting more, receiving more degrees, undergraduate and postgraduate degrees than our male counterparts. We're showing leadership in the workplace. And as far as educational and attainment has increased, the work that we're performing has also changed. There are, we've heard the statistics tonight, we've studied the statistics, and we know that, there's a larger share of women who are moving up in management ranks to a certain level, mid-management. When we start talking about those senior ranks, we're seeing a disparity in terms of the professional and related occupations. So we also can understand that there has been significant increases in the past decades. However, when you look at our accomplishments in terms of education and what we're doing on that level, and then we're saying, there's some pay increases there, we are still lagging behind our male counterparts. So even for those with college degrees, our earnings are raising, they're going up. For example, and I went back, I'm a researcher at heart, and I'd like to go way back, let's go back to the 70s, women's earnings rose by 33% compared to 22% for male counterparts. And even with increases back then, we are still lagging behind men. Let's come up to modern day time. We heard the statistics tonight. So all cross levels of education, women are working full-time, year-round. We're earning, a percentage of what our male counterparts are earning. But that pay gap holds across all education levels, to answer your question about education.
Wow.
The gender pay gap is largest at the top of, look at Fortune 500 firms with a high number of women executives outperforming their industry median, for all measures of profitability, but we're still lagging. We still can't get to certain positions in companies. We have Fortune 500 companies. How many women are leading Fortune 500 companies, let alone 100?
Right.
Yeah, 25, right? 25 according to that stat Carolyn read.
And how many are African American women?
So this is Renelle, and thank you so much, Dr. Robin, for sharing that. And I do agree. I think when I think about the role of education, I think specifically about what one has gained to make them qualified for a particular position that would make them hireable, marketable, or desirable in the workplace. So whether we're talking about academia, corporate, nonprofit, you name it. I personally feel that, and just from what I've seen, I personally feel that a lot of times, and this is going to sound a little strange, it's sometimes apart from education that women either are breaking out or are doing it a different way. And this is not, I love our black women, and I love the idea that we do go after education. We have PhDs in our family, and I'm so proud and supportive of them. However, in addition to that, sometimes, and I don't know, like, ladies, you let me know how you feel. Sometimes I feel like it makes it, for us, have to work a little bit harder to get what we're trying to work toward getting that the male counterpart has. And so I represent a different generation. So where we are, a lot of times we think about working within our sphere of influence. So for me, that looks like where I may not climb the ladder specifically where my male counterpart is, but breaking out horizontally and creating change and affecting change in those ways. Because what I love that I see is what was said just a moment ago, is that women, black women in education, that's growing, and that's an awesome thing, and we should continue to encourage that and to support that. However, at the same time, we want to make sure that we're able to spread the wings, and maybe it's promoting growth in other areas that can eventually, just like others have kind of paved the way for us, that can eventually begin to do that, and using our education in that platform, and I hope that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
That makes plenty of sense. And Carolyn and Tracy, before you chime in, it just, as Dr. Robin and Ronell were talking, it made me think about my own career path and how for many positions that are managerial or administrative positions, I cannot tell you how frequently I've heard you're overqualified, you're overqualified, you're overqualified. But then the flip side of the coin is I've never been the CEO or the CFO or the COO of a Fortune 500 company. I've certainly run my own business for several years, but where those Fortune 500 companies are, I don't have that level of experience either. So I've found, especially over the past 10 to 15 years, I've been in this middle place where it's like I'm overqualified for a whole segment of employment and underqualified for another segment of employment. And where does that leave me? You know where that leaves me? Managing my own darn business. Because it's like, you know what I mean? You end up being in this place and space where you're underpaid, you're mules, you're worked like, 35 runaway slaves, and folk are okay with that because what I found, and I hear this from so many women in my travels around the world, is that people capitalize on the fact that some of us feel stuck. They're like, well, where's she going? She doesn't have the qualifications to do X, Y, and Z, and she's way overqualified for those positions down there. So we got her now. Let's work her to death. And been there, done that, and it's like, wow. And we know that island is full. That island is full.
So, Dr. Lauren, this is Ronell. I'm sorry. Can I jump in really quickly and just comment on something you just said?
Look, we're sitting around the living room chopping it up. Go right ahead.
We're just talking, right? So you said something that my husband and I were actually just recently talking about. And it's just this understanding and this awareness that as business women, we get it, that we must create opportunities for ourselves. Because I feel like it will forever be a crab in the basket where you'll start to, feel like some progress, you're getting a footing, but there may be something or, obstacles that can kind of bring you back down to where you started or maybe not quite that far. However, if I'm floating in this realm of operating in my sphere of influence, what I'm doing is creating opportunities for myself, for those that are willing to come alongside me, and for those that are looking for leadership. So you're right. We're carving out that space. We're not waiting for that space to be made available to us. We're creating that space for us.
So this is Dr. Robin, and I agree with both of you, Dr. Pitts and Ronell. But the question that I have is, creating opportunities when you go out and become an entrepreneur and you're doing your own thing. When you're working in corporate America or working for somebody else, you don't have that type of liberty a lot of times, the flexibility to create those opportunities because you're under a microscope yourself. Depending on where you are, like if you're a hiring manager, like I worked as I was an officer of of a large international human services organization. So yes, I had an opportunity to hire people and to help grow and develop people, but I still had my own challenges. Do you understand what I'm saying? Being the first in the history of the organization, the first woman in my position, and to be African American at that.
Right.
And so we deal with our with their own challenges. You know, your work is judged. We can start running down the list of what happens, you know, with us, and there's a trauma that comes with that, a type of trauma that can come with that. So you can work hard. You know, we're taught. I can remember as a little girl growing up, you know, thank God for parents who instilled in me I can be anything, I can do anything. So my confidence and competence was never a question. And so when you think about the things that you encounter in the workplace, and you're looking at glass ceiling, you know, we're taught and we see if the requirement, if the job description is you have to have an associate's degree, that's okay for our Caucasian counterparts. But as African Americans, especially let's talk about women, you have to have a bachelor's degree. If they want to just exclude you, then they'll say, if you got a bachelor's degree, they'll say you need a master's degree. So, okay, we'll go get a master's degree. Oh, it's changed to a doctoral degree or a law degree. So we always have to be better. We always have to have more.
Yeah.
Right?
That's real. And it reminds
me. So we're dealing with that in addition to those societal barriers that we have to deal with. You know, the gender and color-based differences, prejudice and biases. You know, it's real. This is real. Still happening in 2019.
It really is, and it brings to mind to me the work, and Carolyn and Tracy, I definitely want you to chime in here, because as Dr. Robin was talking about that, it brought to mind the work that each of you are doing. What's the word I want to use? The work that each of you are doing apart from your salaried positions, right? And each of you are in leadership positions, and you're doing extraordinary work, but you've figure out how to sort of etch out that time, if you will, to do your own thing, to sort of lay that foundation. Can you speak to that in correlation to this part of the discussion?
Carolyn,
absolutely.
Go first.
Go ahead, Tracy.
Go ahead. Oh, okay.
Oh,
so I'm listening to this, and I'm just overwhelmed by the amount of insight and truth that's being spoken here on every week, but this one in particular, because first of all, as a nurse in a high executive administrative position, I definitely know that even in that sphere of things, that there is a ceiling that exists. And I wholeheartedly agree with the fact that each and every day I am very much aware that I can never come to work or enter any of the spaces that I am privileged to enter in that realm, be it corporate or otherwise, and ever have an off day or not be on my A game. Although many of my counterparts who may not be as skilled, as knowledgeable, as equipped, as polished, can enter in, and because they're having a bad day, everybody will walk around on eggshells and it will be okay. Hence, I've come to turn that into something that we discussed in our women's groups in my other sphere of action, which we spoke of in regards to the women's work and being the entrepreneur and founder of my own nonprofit organization. Carving out the time to do what I do with women in community and wherever I am blessed to go in the country is the gift that I have to give both to them and to myself. Because it is difficult to know that you can never be the one to say today is my off day.
Right.
Not in certain spaces, not in certain avenues, because we are, as both of the doctors have referred to, we are always taught, most of us, especially as women of color, that we have to jump higher, run faster, be better, be more advanced, because we understand that there's a plateau that we are almost destined to hit. On the other side of that, I can't wait till we get to the next question. I'm reading here. I'm excited about how race and gender come into work in the workplace. How I don't want to have to apologize for the fact that I'm tired on a certain day. I don't want to have to apologize or cower or dumb down what I know I'm capable of, and I actually refuse to, but I've had to learn to be a bit more tactful and finesse in how to have that conversation so that I can still maintain my dignity, because that's important, and to model for those behind me the importance of not losing your head, not losing your grip, being able to speak truth to power without being apologetic, and yet maintaining an avenue where you can continue to move forward, because the goal is always forward movement, but I think it also has to go hand in hand with reaching back and modeling what we would like our fellow sisters to see, because we know, like those who've gone before us, what they're going to be up against. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Hello, and this is Carolyn. For me, I'm just sitting here and I'm, thinking about my day-to-day job. And I work in a different realm. I work in management in the child welfare system, and we're all women. Like we have maybe three. Most of our management team is women. However, because I'm a woman of color, I can say that my degree is higher than most of the people who are above me. And I've been there longer.
Wow.
Right. I've been there longer. And so it's just, and it's very amazing. I can relate to Tracy where, I can't have an off day, and I can't, I have to always be on my P's and Q's, because the fact that I like I said, my degree is higher than most of them. We kind of butt heads a lot. And so, you have to be professional, because I also take pride in the fact that I am developing the staff that I supervise, because I want them, to be in position, as they, grow into their careers in this field. I want them to be in position, to take over and to run these offices and because I want them to, we need compassionate people, and we need people who aren't there, because unfortunately, that's one of the jobs that people with social work and social service degrees, it's a higher paying job. So a lot of people aren't necessarily there because of the work. They're there for the pay. And so it's really hard to weed those people out, because it's, it's civil service, so it's really hard to get rid of people. Despite you have to literally almost do something so egregious that, you can lose a job and get it back in 6 months. So, it's really tough for me some days because of the passion that I have, and, and trying to maintain my level of professionalism while trying to navigate all the, the cliques, because there's cliques, because it is a bunch of women, so it's kind of catty sometimes. And we can know that it's completely wrong, and people will side with the head honcho because, siding with the head honcho is kind of what gets you those perks, even if we know that it's not the right thing to do. And so I have to, I tread lightly some days, not jeopardizing my job or my values or my morals or my ethics, but I tread lightly some days simply because I need to be able to be there the next day to make sure that, the people that I'm caring for and supervising, that they do have someone that is there for the right reason. And, all the while, I do have a business on the side as well. I do, which is my passion. It has absolutely nothing to do with, it's all about my creative side. But that is kind of what
and she's so creative, let me just say. She's all that.
Yeah. That's lovely. It's really tough. And I will just say this before we move on, that despite our profession being predominantly women, those who are running our department are primarily men.
Wow.
If that makes any sense. That makes any sense at all.
Wow.
Yep.
So hold on, ladies. So before we move on, we do have a caller. So I'm going to patch this caller in, and we're going to find out what their comment or question is. Caller 7265, welcome to House Talk. You're on the air. What is your comment or question for the panel? Caller? Okay, guess they changed their mind. Moving right along. You were saying, Carolyn, I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, I just had to get that last piece out before we moved on. That was all. But as we talked about all month, women of color are resilient and certainly not lacking in ambition. We have made remarkable improvements towards advanced levels of education and success. Research tells us black women surpass any other group in both race and gender in college enrollment. What's apparent is women of color want to work and want to succeed, yet we are more likely than any group in the country to work for poverty-level wages. For women of color, the glass ceiling presents more like a concrete ceiling. Multiple factors contribute to this dilemma, including unconscious bias, lack of confidence, and lack of opportunity, which all are contributing to the concrete ceiling. So then how do black women navigate race and gender in the workplace?
Former First Michelle Obama said, I am an example of what is possible when girls from the very beginning of their lives are loved and nurtured by people around them. I was surrounded by extraordinary women in my life who taught me about quiet strength and dignity. And with that concept in mind, Dr. Pitts continues to use House Talk as a medium to educate, empower, and liberate. You have a right to greater levels of success. I'm going to say that again. You have a right to greater levels of success, just like the next woman. And we challenge you tonight to choose to not be the same, but want to be better, want to do better. You have the power within, though it may be unrealized, to shatter the glass and concrete ceilings in your life. You've heard the saying before. We've all heard it. The sky is the limit. Dr. Pitts disagrees with that statement and encourages you to understand that the only limitations are those you place upon yourselves or that you allow to be placed upon you. Don't look at the barriers as barriers. Look at them as opportunities to blaze new trails and make greater strides than you have ever made in your career and in your personal life.
And on that note, Tracy, when I think about race and gender in the workplace, I think about, I'm going to turn back the hands of time for a minute, and I'm going to go back to grad school. I was actually talking to my dean on the phone yesterday, and we were reminiscing about an incident that occurred when I was working on my master's where members of my cohort reported to my dean that they were afraid of me. They accused me of having angry black woman syndrome and really expressed grave concern for their safety in my presence, which was hilarious to me because I haven't knocked heads in years. But it's like, okay. But when I think about how that transitioned to the workplace, I fast forward into the work that I'm doing now. And there was a similar situation where a superior came to me and told me that I need to tone it down a little bit. And so when I think about who I am as a woman of color, when I think about how my passion is perceived as anger, when I think about how my tenacity is perceived as arrogance, when I think about how my fire is perceived as, this uncontrollable aggression, my recommendation to listeners is temperance. One of the things that I learned, and it's a hard pill to swallow because I feel like we're being asked to not be authentically who we are because other people can't handle it. But in that, though, we also have to have the wisdom to recognize that we have to, as you all said, we're not allowed to have a bad day. So we have to be very, very careful at times, as you stated, walking on eggshells because of our gender, because of our race, and recognize that it doesn't mean that we're kowtowing. I like to see it as we're just using wisdom. Wisdom to navigate the system appropriately, wisdom to recognize that, unfortunately, the deck in many ways is stacked against us. But the flip side of that, and what Tracy said, my philosophical view, my ideology concerning this is that, yes, those things are adverse and we shouldn't be treated unjustly. But the flip side of that is we can actually look at it as an opportunity. Oh, so you want to oppress me in the workplace? Well, let me just go ahead and shine that much more. And what I'm learning and practicing every day is shining, right? I'm learning how to shine without always speaking, because y'all know the sister can talk. But I'm learning how to look, right. I'm learning how to be Sasha Fierce without the ferocity coming out of my mouth. I just rock out. I do what I'm supposed to do. I turn reports in early. I make sure that I'm exceeding the hours that are expected of me, because there is never a traffic jam on the extra mile. I rock out, and at the end of the day, I silence people without telling them shut up and get out of my face. Because at the end of the day, what you got to complain about? I'm going above and beyond. I'm your darn cash cow. So what? And I know that seems like, well, why we have to go through all that? Because we're women of color, and that's the hand that we've been dealt. So we can either be angry in the workplace and folk be afraid of us and walk around us to get to the water cooler and be all timid and be reporting us because they scared to death of us and think we're going to beat them up in the women's room. Or we can just, you know what I mean? Or we can just be Sasha Fierce and do what we do with greatness and excellence without announcing it per se, if that makes sense.
It makes perfect sense. And one of the things that my daughter, and this is Tracy again, and then I'm going to back off because I can't wait to hear what the other doctors have to say. My daughter is always saying, one of the things that she's learned from watching me has been that what's understood doesn't need to be explained. And so, and I said, okay, I'm glad Mother has done her job if you understand that. But I also had a very wise instructor, and I am very much aware of the fact that I am in a position now at 51, which I'm proud to say, that I could not have had when I was 31, because I had to learn a number of things in terms of maintaining and utilizing that wisdom, The Bible says that in all thy getting, get understanding. But there was a very wise woman who said to me back in my late 20s, early 30s, she said to me, I would like to speak to you. And she was another woman of color. And she said, you are very good at what you do, but your presence is so strong that you will always have to be mindful of the fact that more often than not, your passion will be perceived as aggression and not assertion. So she was like, and I immediately got in my feelings, okay?
Right.
And I know I'm the dopest, and I know that I'm authentic, and I'm going to be me. But I really thought about that and have reminded myself of that repeatedly over the years. And as God has allowed me to grow in grace and in that wisdom that you spoke of, which is key, I actually have had opportunity to reconnect with her and to thank her. And I have shared that sentiment with so many other sisters along the way, because that is wisdom. And you can maintain your authenticity with intention without cowering if you just use your wisdom, because people have their own biases about us just simply when we walk through the door. Here I am, not only a woman of color, but I've got these long dreadlocks, so there is assumptions when I walk through the door.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's good stuff, Doc, ladies. I'm excited.
Dr. Robin?
Yes, hi, this is Dr. Robin. So, interesting dialogue, Tracy and Carolyn, in perspective. And I have to agree with the majority of what I heard. I will say this. For black women, let's just focus, since this conversation is about black women, let's just say this. We're dealing with stereotypes, period. And so the biases and the indifference is coming from a place of fear or what they believe we represent in the workplace. As you said, just Dr. Lauren, just because you're African American woman, you're perceived as threatening. We're loud. When you think about all of the stereotypes, you're dealing primarily with stereotypes. And how do you fight a stereotype? Because that's based off, lots of times that's based off of ignorance and a lack of knowledge. So sometimes we have these teaching moments in the workplace. Yeah. And I forget which speaker said, about wisdom, and you don't explain what's understood. Well, sometimes they don't understand. And so we got to use that as teachable moments. It's interesting. I was talking to one of my clients earlier today, and we were having a dialogue very similar to this. We don't have an opportunity to have a bad day. Somebody said that earlier during this call. We can't. When we throw balls up, guess what? We got to catch every one of them. When I go into the boardroom and I have to present to the board of directors, I have to be spot on. I have to look the part. I have to be articulate. I have to be able to answer those questions. My slides got to be right. Everything has to be right. I'm going to be questioned to the 10th degree on those numbers. My counterpart can come in and not be prepared. He's traveling with the family. Get back, he's tired. But it's okay. He gets a free pass, and he's still going to get his raise. I was giving my client an example today. I can remember speaking at one of the biggest events that the company that I used to work for had every year. All of our boards, we had 5 boards of directors. The company is huge. 5 boards of directors. Everybody came. I mean, and we would have it at a huge convention center. I'm getting ready to go. Now they know you hire me. My boss was very insecure when it came to me. But he said to me when I was getting ready to go up, because this is going to be his first time to see me in that forum, right? In that way. You've heard me talk in meetings and board meetings and leadership meetings, but to get up and do a full-on presentation like that, this man's going to say to me before I mount the platform, you better do a great job because your raise depends on it, huh?
Oh, what? What?
That's exactly what was said to me.
Oh my God!
And of course, we're going to show up. We're going to rock the house. We're going to bring it. And when I got down, we had board members and the people, they're standing up, they're getting up saying, "Oh, I could have listened to you all night." My boss, beat-faced red, said to me, "You earned your raise." Who does
Oh my
that?
gosh! Yeah, that's foul.
But this is the stuff that you deal with.
That's right.
And so in my position, again, being an officer of the company, being in senior leadership, being the only one who looks like me in boardrooms around the table, and being questioned, a lot of times they'll ask you a question, but then they want to ask other people because is she right? And then have to come back, oh, you were right. I know I was right. What did you think? We're second guessed. Right. We're undermined. Yeah. And so these are the things that we have to deal with in the workplace as African American women. A lot of times you'll hear women say, my colleagues that I talk to that's still working in corporate, along the lines of what both Tracy, Carolyn, and Dr. Pitts have said, you got to dim the light. You're too loud. You're too bold.
Too bright,
we
girl.
have
You're
to be
uncomfortable.
You can't shine. You got to dim. You got to tone it down. Sometimes we have to make ourselves uncomfortable so that others can feel comfortable around us, right?
Yeah. That's real.
Many times we feel as though we can't be our authentic selves for the risk of being called unprofessional because being loud is unprofessional. It's okay for them,
right?
But it may not be okay
right.
for you. So there's always
dancing on tables at the Christmas party and stuff.
There it is. They can do that. But when I train, and I'm talking to groups of young women coming along that I mentor, you have to tell them. I tell them, understand the rules of engagement.
Yes.
There are rules to this thing. Understand the rules of engagement. You can be your true authentic self, meaning staying true to who you are, your values, your morals and ethics, but understand the rules of engagement. Know what your purpose is, what your platform of power is, where you want to go in that organization, and use it to your advantage. I know when I drive to work, I like to listen to music. And depending on my mood that day, it could be gospel music, it could be jazz. I might be rocking it out of my car. But I know when I pull up to my place of employment, when I worked, I had to turn that down. I had to say, when I got out the car, when I seen my counterparts, it was, good morning, Bob. Hi, Jack. Hi, Tammy. Hi, Tammy. You know, you have to understand the rules of engagement.
Yeah.
Right.
And
That's
still
good.
remain authentic. I'm articulate, but see, we we may be trilingual.
Most of us
That's
but
real.
when we're in the workplace, there's one language that we have to speak. That's their language.
That's right.
Dr. Robin,
Understanding
this
the
is
rules
Dr.
of
Pitts.
engagement.
Right.
Yes, ma'am.
This is Dr. Pitts. I wanted to chime in on that and then give Ronell a chance to chime in. What my interpretation of what you just said is what I call being able to hold your own in the boardroom or on the block, and knowing that particularly as women of color, we have to be that chameleon. Because one of the running jokes that exist in my family and amongst my friends is that Dr. Pitts just plays polished, dignified, and refined on TV. Now, I'm a completely different person. Look, Carolyn, Tracy, look here. I'm a completely different person when I'm just home around family and friends. Why? Because I can be without the judgment, without the criticism, without the consequences, if you will, of just being, you know what, Lauren. You know, at work, I have to be Dr. Pitts. You know, if I'm on the stage doing a presentation or training, I'm Dr. Pitts. And I still cut up sometimes because it's just in my DNA, but not to the degree that I cut a fool and wild out. Because around family and friends, I'm a wild child. Around family and friends, it's like, look, I'm making my footprint on the world, and oh, y'all don't like it? Oh well, you know. So, you know, but in the corporate arena, it's like you said, it's hi Bob, hi, how are you today? How's the baby? And is there anything I can do? Would you like my assistance with that? And you know, my mom calls that my other person voice, but it's like you said, I'm like, Mom, there's different rules. There's different rules that I have to abide by when I walk out the front door, you know, going into the professional arena. And some people just don't get that. And I think that if we could just let our listeners know, particularly those women of color, that we're not suggesting for a moment to not be authentically who you are. What we're saying in essence is play the game. Play the game.
Yeah.
If you're not in a position to start your own business and be your own boss, play the game. We're not saying that you got to kiss buns or anything like that, but there are rules of engagement, and you have to learn how to, in order to win the game, you have to know the rules of the game in order to play it effectively. And that's what we're saying. But Ronell, please chime in.
Well, I just agree 110%. I'm going to start off by saying that because I love the way it sounds when we encourage each other, men, women, you know, to be our authentic selves. But when you are talking about the workplace, we know that there's only a certain percentage of authenticity that the workplace can really handle. And so understanding that means that I have to moderate how much authenticity I can stand to release in the workplace. It's so funny. I was reading an article in one of Oprah's magazines just over the weekend, and they were talking about that, you know, and this wasn't, I don't believe it was an African-American author, and she was just saying, like, what do we risk by being authentic in the workplace, and what could be some benefits? So as we talk about, you know, our own experiences and then for our own businesses outside of the quote-unquote 9 to 5, how all of this relates, I can say for myself personally, I work for federal government, and you don't have, the movement there is very different, And so, you know, you don't have a lot of wiggle room to say, well, I'm going to go for this because I want that, and this is why I think, you know, I should. There's so much merit that has to come along and up under to support, you know, what you feel you want. Even if it's just seeing change in the workplace, even if it's just seeing change in the workplace, what regulation, what policy supports these things. And so you see a lot of those glass ceilings. You know, you see a lot of the stumbling blocks. And so, you know, when I say things like I have to consider my sphere of influence, or I have to consider what I have in my hand that I could use to start nudging an opportunity, sometimes that is often met with, I can't say sometimes and often, it's often met with resistance. But what I have seen is patience and diligence together, along with wisdom, and so many of you have said that tonight, how all of that together for me has kind of like slowly shown me how you can eventually see some of the fruit of your labor. Prime example, the beginning of the year, I had to present something to upper-level management concerning a matter that we're doing on the congressional level in terms of the division that I work with. And I had to let them know what we're doing just isn't practical. So as much as I respect and appreciate those that I work amongst and trying to be the voice for those who are working beneath me, we have to make sure that what we do makes sense. And that's not you know, a special way of thinking. It's practical, and it's actually something that we often forget to do when we're serving in any capacity. And the only thing it seems like they heard was, Renelle is overwhelmed. I said, wow, this is all we got out of this long meeting is that Renelle was overwhelmed, and we missed the point. And so what I had to come back and do was to lay that back out in a different way. But now this time, presenting the evidence of my argument, and the evidence were things that were happening from the very first time we had the meeting. So I was able to point and say, this happened, that's going on, we're missing it here, and that is because we're not being practical in our approach. So when I think about patience in trying to make our headway in the workplace, to me it means drop the seed, let it germinate, give it some time, and it'll some way or another, it'll spring up, it'll bear fruit of its own, and your point can sometimes, it doesn't always work in every situation, but your point can be better understood. I like what was mentioned earlier when it was said, what's understood doesn't have to be explained. And that is exactly what my experience was. Once they understood the arguments and the suggestions, once they understood it, it was because of the fruit. It was because of what was produced from the lack of action. And so they finally figured that out. So what does it mean now? Now we're going back, redoing some things, and the wisdom says you don't go back in and keep your head in the office and say, I told you so. So that has been an encouragement to me. And then, like, I think you were asking a little bit ago, Dr. Pitts, how is what we're doing in our own practices in some way connected to what we're talking about tonight? I love teaching, training, educating on professionalism. It means so many things. Someone talked about how you have to manage a group of people that sometimes really appear unmanageable for different reasons. And so trying to find creative ways to successfully do that, but you're kind of doing it coming through the back door. Something else we often talk about, and it's been well received even with the young adult population, is emotional intelligence. You know, like really getting what those pillars look like, because I can be a great leader in my own mind, and I can have a lot coming behind me in terms of, you know, well, this is why she's who she is, and this is why she's done what she's done. But if I don't really get the people that I'm there to serve, and if they don't feel like I get them, I'm not going to get anything from them. And so we love being able to have that opportunity to sit and support senior level management, support leaders on any level, and to just talk from a very practical standpoint. And, you know, you mentioned earlier the passion, and it's so funny. Just by nature, I'm a very passionate. You hear it in my voice. This is the part of my authenticity that I can't share at work. I'm very low key when it comes to Renelle in the workplace. But when I start talking about things that I'm so passionate about, you do hear that. You hear the volume. My hands are like wailing in the air right now, you know. But but even with that, like bringing the passion back to what we do and why we do it, whether we're doing it for ourselves as entrepreneurs, whether we're doing it in the workplace, I have to find my place there because that's the only way that I find I'll be in any way effective.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Well, let me. This is Dr. Robin. Let me just clarify something, and I can appreciate what Ronell just said on many levels. But I just want to clarify something. When I talk about my authentic self, I'm talking about the core of me, my platform that I stand on, which is integrity and the ethical side of me. I don't compromise that in the workplace ever, anywhere. That's just who I am. I think it's important when we're talking about working in companies, you got to know the culture. Every company has a culture.
Yes, it does.
I've worked at many different companies, and no company, none of the companies that I worked for really had the same culture. Some similarities, but some differences. So I want to point that out too, in terms of how you're received in the workplace. And then I'll say this, and I'm going to be quiet. We operate in different spheres. I keep hearing the term spheres of influence. We absolutely have spheres of influence, and we operate different spheres as well. We have our private self, we have our personal self, we have our professional self, and we have the public self.
Right.
That's right. How, so learning when and how. As far as integrity, I got to make sure that how I am in private is how I am in public, and how I am in professional. There's just some things you can't compromise. But you're right. My philosophy is when I'm in the workplace, my private life and my personal life is just that. But my professional life and public life can be, discussed in the professional sphere. So I just wanted to point that out. I feel very passionate about that.
Right.
Yeah. So listen, we know that empowerment that empowerment works, and when people are valued at an early age, they're more likely to carry that self-worth throughout their lives, which equips them to make great strides personally and professionally, despite barriers. More room must be made for women of color, for those of us who have shattered many of these barriers. We need to be role models for the next generation. Bearing all of this in mind, ladies, how can we kind of quickly, because we're kind of running out of time, how can we, black women, navigate a successful career despite systemic barriers and implicit bias?
This is Ronell. Can I say something, and it will be very quick? I love what's happening tonight, and I love these gatherings that happen outside of this setting, because what we're doing is we're sharing our experiences. We're sharing what has worked for us, so like whatever those best practices are. And I think the more things like this happen, it empowers us to know how we can do it a little bit different in the workplace. So I'm walking away with several nuggets tonight from hearing from Dr. Robin, from Dr. Pitts, from the other ladies that are on the line, from Carolyn and Tracy, what has worked, what your experiences have been. And I think as we feed off of each other, and again, this is just from a personal level, as we feed off of each other's strengths, experiences, weaknesses, it could only help if we do the right thing with it. It could only help to improve how we interact with the human beings that are in the workplace, because I think outside of everything else, the people that I see every day that are sometimes challenging and that are as, pliable as this brick wall in front of me, they're still human beings. And so I need to gain and grasp wisdom from others to know how to navigate those rough waters.
Wow, that's awesome. I agree. This is Dr. Robin. And I'll end with this. A wise man by the name of Barack Obama said, be the change you want to see. So as best as we can, and can do that for those who are still working in corporate or, working for an employer, we got to try to be the change we want to see. And then Marion Wright Edelman said, you can't be what you can't see. Right? And so for black women climbing the corporate ladder, that really holds true. So we want to be the change that we want to see, and remember that we can't be what we can't see. And I'm going to leave you with that.
Right. Ooh. This is Tracy. I would just say yes and yes. And in terms of the implicit bias, we could just sit right there for a very long time and
That's
continue.
a show by itself, right?
Yes, please. I will just say that in order for us to navigate really successful careers, we have to remember purpose, and we also have to remember wisdom. Again, it goes back to that. And to be wise as a serpent and gentle as a dove. You have to know balance and, be like Kenny Rogers. Know when to hold them, know when to fold them, know when to play,
That's
and know
true.
when to.
Okay,
True.
ladies, this is Carolyn. Before we turn it over to Dr. Lauren, can each one of you, because usually at the end of each show we talk about key things that we want to take away from the conversation tonight. So can each of you just give us one quick key that you're going to take away from tonight's conversation, because it was very fruitful.
This is Tracy. I'll just say my one key is to just continue to always look back to where you've been and appreciate the growth that you've experienced. It's important to always appreciate your growth.
And this is Renelle. I would certainly say to consider your obstacles as opportunities. In addition to that, be sure that you always come from a pure place. We will always see an obstacle if we're looking for an obstacle. But if I'm looking for that opportunity, then that may change how I respond. So come from a pure place and see opportunities.
Dr. Robin, I think what I'm going to take away from this is to continue to, help uplift women, be one who continues to reach out to women, to uplift women in the workplace. I think we are stronger when we lift each other up, stronger together, and continue, in the words of even a client, one of my clients, helping women to continue to find and establish their platform of power. So that's it.
What you got, Carolyn? Before I close us out.
Well, for me, it's the be the change that we want to see, because that's honestly that's been my goal from day one, and I'm just going to continue to do that.
Wow. You all, man, you just keep blessing my heart, and I'm just so excited. I will say this as I'm closing us out. As a professional woman, I often think of the fight that it took and in many ways continues to take to continue to go to higher levels professionally. I know firsthand, listeners, how hard the rejection, inequality, injustice, judgment, criticism, maltreatment, and tons of other barriers can be to deal with. The flip side is, and I think that Ronell spoke to this, the flip side is great fulfillment and satisfaction has come in every leadership position I've ever held because I was able to look at what was going on as an opportunity instead of a barrier. And I recognize that, not because I got to tell people what to do, but more importantly, because I got to make a difference, because I got to be the change I wish to see in others, as Carolyn so eloquently put it, and because I got to prepare those under my direction for greater levels of success. Listeners, we're not saying that the barriers aren't real. They are. But your fight has got to be greater. If the door gets slammed in your face, go in a window. If the window gets shut down, go down the chimney. If there's no chimney, knock a wall down. What we're saying tonight is don't give up on yourself. Don't stop trying, and never, ever allow anyone to tell you you're not worthy of advancement. Nurture your network, because as we've said over and over and over again tonight, it's about relationships, because the quality of your relationships will help you get where you want and need to be. We want you to invest in yourself, because historically women who invest in themselves go further. We want you to stay visible. Stop lurking in the shadows and come into the spotlight. Just do it with wisdom. Own your personal brand, because you are your brand. Be deliberate and intentional about who you are, what you do, and who you do it for. Become the expert on whatever your subject matter is, and position yourself to be a great resource, problem solver, and relationship builder. Manage your expectations. Have realistic expectations and clarity on the amount of time your goals will take. Secure mentors and sponsors who can help you navigate the challenges they've already overcome. And lastly, we want you to thrive as a woman leader. Know your rights as a woman in the workplace, because chances are, if you continue to tolerate maltreatment, you'll keep getting it. The EEOC is my friend, y'all. Be deliberate and intentional in being your own greatest advocate. Don't be good or great. Be extraordinary. Be unforgettable. Listeners, I want to thank you for tuning in tonight. And don't forget to join my guest co-host for the entire summer, Dr. Brian Maiden, and me next week as we kick off our Summer 2019 Manness Series. That's right, I said Manness Series. And guess what? Look at here. Look, y'all ready? Next week's episode is Mating Practices of Men, Eroticism, Love, the Hookup, or ... Yeah, it's going to be a fire episode. Listeners, it's going to be an information-packed, no-holds-barred summer series as we dedicate the entire summer to issues and concerns impacting men. So women, y'all going to want to check it out too, because it's going to get juicy. It's going to be juicy, juicy, juicy on House Talk this summer. Dr. Robin, Ronell, thank you for such an insightful contribution tonight. Tracy,
thank you.
Carolyn, and Regina, we missed you tonight. Thank you for your support and tremendous contribution during our month-long series, Empowering Women. Thank you so much, everybody. Good night, everyone.
Good night.
Thank you. Good night.
Thank you. Good night.
Good night.